Dr. Mohammed Tunis, Speaker of the Community Parliament, honorable members of ECOWAS Parliament, Secretary General, Her Excellency the Vice President of the ECOWAS Commission, commissioners, staff, and all the distinguished personalities present at this session. It is indeed my privilege and honor to stand before this august assembly to present the State of the Community Address. This is in line with the provisions of the Supplementary Act ASA 1-1216, which obliges the President of the Commission to address the Parliament twice a year on the implementation of the community work programs. My presentation today builds on my last presentation, and it is divided into three parts. Part one, the introduction, looks at the international context in which we operate as a community. This section also highlights the economic situation of the region. Part two looks at specific areas of integration. More specifically, Part 2.1 looks at the economic and monetary union, our progress towards single currency, intra-community trade, fiscal regulations, and free movements of persons. Part 2.2 looks at the energy and infrastructure development in the community. Part 2.3 focuses on human development and social affairs, while Part 2.4 looks at peace and security in the region. Part 3 looks at the community institutions, namely the Court of Justice, Djaba, and WAHO. Honorable Speaker, distinguished parliamentarians, economic performance deteriorated markedly across the world. Lingering effects of COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine have engendered food and energy price rises that have eroded real income globally and particularly in our region. Economic growth in the world's three largest economies, namely the United States, China, and European Union, weakened with significant spillover to other countries, particularly ECOWAS member states. This took the form of low levels of trade, remittances, and investment inflows. At the same time, rising government borrowing costs and large capital outflows have exacerbated fiscal and balance of payments pressures. The region's economic performance mimicked the global economic performance. Although agriculture remained resilient, manufacturing and services have been seriously impacted with the rising global inflation and increasing costs of inputs for manufacturing. Honorable Speakers, turning to the economic affairs, it should be noted that while the commitment of member states towards economic union remains strong, a number of challenges continue to inhibit the region's performance in terms of macroeconomic convergence. Despite sustained efforts, both the primary and secondary convergence criteria remain elusive for the majority of our member states. For example, the number of countries that met the budget deficit criteria dropped from 10 in 2019 to only 2 in 2021. As for the inflation criteria, the number of countries that met this criteria dropped from 9 in 2021 to only 2 in 2022. The budget deficit criteria was met by 12 in 2022 as opposed to 14 in 2021. The number of countries that met the external exchange rate variation dropped to 10 in 2022 from 13 in 2021. In both 2021 and 2022, 10 countries met the criteria on public debt. The only criteria that all member states attained in 2022 was the gross external reserve levels, thanks largely to the International Monetary Fund special drawing rights allocations to ECOWAS member countries. Honorable Speaker, distinguished parliamentarians, within the framework of the Macroeconomic Convergence and Stability Pact among ECOWAS member states, the Ministerial Committee on the ECOWAS single currency was unable to agree on the definition of the concept of majority of member states that is required to declare the region stable for the purpose of the single currency. The matter has now been escalated to the authority of heads of state and government. Regarding the proposed Central Bank of West Africa, studies on the size and distribution of the capital and reserve pooling have been finalized. The member states have agreed on 187 million as the capital base of the bank. However, work on the criteria for pooling reserves, the voting system, and the establishment of a Solidarity and Stabilization Fund for ECOWAS is still in progress. On trade, Excellencies, Honorable Speaker, distinguished members, the Commission continues to support its member states in the formulation of their offers, requests, and tariff concessions as part of the African Continental Free Trade Area negotiations to ensure negotiation modalities and guidelines are adhered to and the regional acquis preserved as directed by the ECOWAS heads of state. To date, 54 of the 55 African Union member states have signed the agreement, including all 15 of our member states and Mauritania. Apart from Benin and Liberia, all the member states of the ECOWAS region have ratified the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. In November 2022, the combined revised schedule of specific commitments of ECOWAS member states and Mauritania were submitted to the Secretariat as part of the negotiations on the 5 priority sectors in trade and services. The ECOWAS tariff schedule on trade in goods has been verified and adopted by the African Union heads of state and government for provisional application. Excellencies, for the operationalization of the regional support program for the regularization of informal trade in the region, the Commission, in partnership with UMOA, SEALS, WACTAF, and the National Statistical Institutes of member states, successfully updated the methodology for collecting data on the informal cross-border flows of food, agro-silvopastoral, and fisheries products. The ECOWAS Commission is also working to address the low intra-regional trade, which remains around 13%. Excellencies, on the ECOWAS Common External Tariff, the Harmonized System 2022 was completed in the first quarter of 2023 and transmitted to member states. Furthermore, work on the implementation of the Interconnected System for the Management of Goods and Transit, SIGMAT, continued. Member states such as Liberia, Sierra Leone, the Gambia, and Ghana have benefited from ECOWAS support to enable them to consider interconnection with other ECOWAS member states. Work on the installation of a central server in Lomé was finalized in March 2023, and tests are underway to enable the interconnection of this regional server with the computer servers of member states. Honourable Speaker, distinguished parliamentarians, regarding fiscal regulations, 2 draft directives and draft supplementary act dealing with transfer pricing, beneficial ownership and tax fraud have been validated. These instruments seek to empower tax administrations to fight tax fraud and tax evasion within the community. In order to improve economic efficiency in production, regional trade and consumer welfare, the ECOWAS Regional Competition Authority carried out a number of activities. These include investigation of complaints, market studies, technical and financial support to member states in order to enable them to implement community competition rules. On the free movement of persons, ECOWAS is introducing innovative measures to facilitate free movement across the sub-region. These include an ECOWAS visa, ECO visa, which mimics the Schengen visa. To date, advocacy on the ECOWAS National Biometric Identity Card has also been intensified. To date, only 6 member states, namely Senegal, Guinea-Bissau, Ghana, Benin, and the Gambia and Sierra Leone, have deployed the cards. It is hoped that others will launch theirs shortly. Honourable Speaker, turning to energy and infrastructure and mines, it should be noted that in the area of energy, we have continued the implementation of our flagship projects in the energy sector, namely the ECOWAS Regional Project for Access to Electricity, ECOREAP. The project aims to increase access to electricity for West African populations. Activities carried out during the reporting period include the official launch of the start of work in Guinea-Bissau, the commencement of environmental and social impact studies of the electrification components in Mauritania, Niger, and Senegal, and the evaluation of tenders as part of the calls for tenders launched for Mauritania, Niger, and Senegal for the recruitment of works companies in the electrification component. Furthermore, in furtherance of our drive to harmonize policies and regulations in the electricity sector in our community, the ECOWAS energy ministers have adopted the regional energy policy, the regional electricity code, and the regional green hydrogen policy. The ministers also validated the village selection criteria, distribution of localities by country, and list of localities to be electrified under the PRODEL 2000 program, paving the way for the start of the feasibility study in May 2023. This project, Honourable Speaker and Members of Parliament, this project seeks to bring electricity to 20,000 villages in our communities. In addition, we have continued to work on promoting the adoption and utilization of LPG for clean cooking across the 15 ECOWAS member states. We did the validation of the LPG promotion strategy and launched the notice of expression of interest for the study of exemptions and taxes on LPG equipment and accessories, and the proposal of harmonized regional directives. In my last report to Parliament, I reported on the merger of the West African gas pipeline project with the Nigeria-Morocco gas pipeline. As part of the implementation of this unified gas pipeline project, coordination of the process of updating the 2030 to 2040 and 2050 natural gas demand forecast of ECOWAS member states have begun as part of the FEED study of the single project. Data from Burkina Faso, Benin, Ghana, Guinea, Mali, and Senegal have already been obtained, and the draft intergovernmental agreement proposed by the proponents of NMGP has been finalized. Under the West Africa Power Pool, construction work of the WAP Information and Coordination Center have been completed and waiting inauguration to be done jointly by His Excellency the Head of State of Benin, President of the ECOWAS Commission, and the European Union. The 1,300 kilometer electricity interconnection line linking Côte d'Ivoire, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea, with a rural electrification component nearly 400 localities, has been completed. Similarly, 1,670 kilometer electricity interconnection line linking Senegal, the Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, and Guinea has been completed. There are currently 9 ongoing projects at various levels of implementation, 7 of which are interconnection and 2 production related. Excellencies, these include 330 kV interconnection line, Volta in Ghana, Tolome, and Saketi, and 350 kilometer long linking the Tema substation in Ghana, and that of Saketi in Benin, which is almost completed. All the other 9 ongoing projects and the 7 interconnection activities are in the documents that are certainly before you. Excellencies, Honorable Speaker, distinguished parliamentarians, in terms of the regional capacity building for the energy sector, we launched the EU ECOWAS Scholarship Program in January this year. The scholarship program is for master's degree in the sustainable energy sector at specialized universities in West Africa for the benefit of eligible students from ECOWAS member states. Efforts continue towards the mobilization of financing for the execution of the Abidjan-Lagos Corridor Highway, with 1,028 kilometers of highway to be built. Preparation works on the project for the construction of Praia-Dakar Maritime Line and for the construction of a highway on the Dakar-Abidjan corridor are ongoing, with 3,164 kilometers of motorway scheduled to be built. Programs for the construction of various joint border control posts are at various levels. These include Nigeria, Cameroon, Côte d'Ivoire, Guinea, Côte d'Ivoire, Liberia, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, and Niger. A joint meeting of Ministries of Foreign Affairs, Infrastructure, Transport, Economy and Finance, Mines and Energy, Agriculture was held to deliberate on the establishment of the ECOWAS Transport and Energy Sector Development and Financing Fund. This fund is expected to generate finances for a levy on the key export resources within the region. In March 2023, the Ministers of Industry adopted standards on solar installations, while the Ministerial Steering Committee of the Regional Project for the construction of the Amilcar Cabral submarine telecommunication cable, which would link the Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Liberia, met and signed an MOU and adopted a roadmap for the implementation of the project in April 2023. Honorable Speaker, on human development and social affairs, the key actions undertaken were in the area of food security, education, voluntary return of migrants, and human security. Unfortunately, about 29 million people need emergency food and nutritional assistance as we speak. I'm repeating this. 29 million people in our region require emergency food and nutritional assistance in our region as we speak. If appropriate measures are not taken, this figure could rise to 42 million during the lean season between June and August 2023. Thus, ECOWAS, together with all its regional partners, SEALs, UEMOA, and the international partners, continue to provide responses to food and nutrition insecurity. And during the first quarter of 2023, especially in 7 countries: Burkina Faso, Cape Verde, Mali, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, and Chad. In addition to the use of stock from the Regional Food Security Reserve, nearly 1.1 million, or 66% of the total projected budget of 1.64 billion of the responses plan that were prepared by member states in July 2022 has been mobilized. The increasing trend of needs continues, as well as the scarcity of resources to finance these response plans. Honorable Speaker, the ECOWAS Regional Animal Health Centers has been implementing mass vaccination and identification campaign against pest de petit ruminant in 5 member states, including Côte d'Ivoire, the Gambia, Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, and Senegal. Furthermore, in April 2022 in Paris, at the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, ECOWAS, in partnership with the Sahel and West African Club, launched an appeal to the international community to come to the aid of all the countries in the region. As at March 31st, 2023, the Commission was very pleased to note that the commitment of partners has ensured the mobilization of huge amount of money for emergency and development actions in the 15 member states. That is several times the initial commitments. Honorable Speaker, distinguished parliamentarians, the regional educational development and the new concept of our flagship ECOWAS Namadi Azikiwe Academic Mobility Scheme was adopted with the main objective of enabling youth to gain practical skills and experiences in ECOWAS institutions, agencies, and contribute to the implementation of ECOWAS programs and activities. For the 2023 cohort, we have 90 young graduates competitively selected from 24,332 applicants. Honorable Speaker, the ECOWAS Commission organized the first African Forum for Research and Innovation in October 2023 in Abuja. FARI has been a framework for cooperation to develop multinational and sectoral partnerships with research professionals and decision makers. Work has commenced on the creation of the West African Academy of Sciences, whose constitutive General Assembly will take place in 2024. Excellencies, Honorable Speaker, Members of Parliament, on the voluntary return of migrants, the ECOWAS Commission in January 2023 supported the assisted voluntary return of 299 citizens of Nigeria and Guinea stranded in the Republic of Niger. The support includes in-kind reintegration assistance, including vocational education and training, to help them start income-generating activities of their choice. Further humanitarian support is being provided to Nigeria to address malnutrition among vulnerable children. An integrated technical assessment and validation mission for urgent humanitarian assistance to internally displaced persons was conducted in Burkina Faso in March 2023. The Commission, through the ECOWAS Peace Fund, will commit 1,804,000 unit of account for the provision of urgent humanitarian assistance to IDPs and host communities as requested by the government of Burkina Faso. In the area of human security, several activities have been undertaken, including a meeting of the Member States Trafficking in Persons focal points and partners to set out the priorities for a regional roadmap against trafficking in persons. The roadmap was adopted by the ECOWAS ministers in charge of national focal institutions against trafficking in persons at the regional conference in Sierra Leone on the 26th of April 2023. The Commission has also developed a synthesis report on trafficking in persons for the region covering 2021 to 2022. On the social affairs still, ECOWAS ministers in charge of labor and employment at their sectoral meeting held in March 2023 adopted the regional action plan on the elimination of child labor and forced labor in West Africa. Under the Drug Prevention and Control Program, the Commission activities include the provision of capacity building for mental health care professionals in Mali, provision of support to a drug treatment center in Ghana, regional workshop for the validation of West African epidemiology network on drug use, report for 2022, support to the Gambia, Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, and Ghana for drug rehabilitation centers and provision of data collection equipment. On the gender development and promotion, some activities undertaken during the period include high-level interactive sessions with ECOWAS gender ministers in New York to reinforce the advocacy campaign dubbed 30% of development funds of the extractive sector to strengthen women's empowerment and girls' education. Other activities implemented in gender include a regional workshop on gender and the transition to a green economy in West Africa in February 2023. On youth and sports, we have commissioned a study on the documentation of traditional sports and games in West Africa. Furthermore, the 12th ECOWAS African Wrestling Tournament took place in Niamey, Republic of Niger, in March 2023, with the participation of 13 out of the 15 ECOWAS member states. Regarding the ECOWAS Volunteers Program, we've recruited and deployed about 35 national and international volunteers between September 2022 and April 2023 to support the national development efforts of Liberia and Sierra Leone. The new volunteers were deployed to various institutions across the provinces and counties of Sierra Leone and Liberia as critical care, palliative, pediatric, and anesthetic nurses, arts, French, and English language teachers, as well as STEM teachers. Honorable Speaker, distinguished parliamentarians, turning to political affairs, peace, and security. Our efforts continue to be focused on supporting member states undergoing elections as a measure for both conflict prevention and strengthening democratic institutions. We deployed election observation missions to general elections in Nigeria, legislative elections in Benin Republic, and provided financial support to Sierra Leone and Guinea-Bissau towards the upcoming general and legislative elections. We have sent preventive diplomatic missions to Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea-Bissau for consultation with all stakeholders involved in the electoral process and with the international community to ascertain the level of preparedness, identify gaps, and support efforts aimed at building the necessary consensus for conducive environment to enable the conduct of peaceful, inclusive, and credible elections in these countries. Honorable Speaker, to eradicate terrorism and deter anti-constitutional change of government, the Authority of Heads of State and Government gave directives regarding enhancing the role of the ECOWAS standby force for deployment to fight terrorism and anti-constitutional change of government. This effort is ongoing. Meanwhile, we have continued to monitor the transition in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea. Additional sanctions were placed on the officials of the military government to maintain pressure on them to work towards the implementation of the 24-month transition calendars agreed with ECOWAS. Nonetheless, to assist these countries in defending their territories from occupation by terrorists, the ECOWAS authority mandated the Commission to seek support for the security agencies. We have been making advocacy to international partners to assist Burkina Faso and Mali in their fight against terrorism. This is yielding some results. On our part, we are identifying our humanitarian assistance to the people of the affected communities. On the regional action against terrorism, we have been advised by experts from the national security agencies to prioritize the deployment of assistance to existing regional arrangements such as the Accra Initiative, the G5 Sahel, the Multinational Joint Task Force, all within the framework of the ECOWAS Action Plan. The concept of operations for the deployment of ECOWAS standby force to fight against terrorism and unconstitutional change of government has two options. Option one provides for a brigade of 5,000 personnel with its structure, composition, and the necessary logistics to conduct kinetic operations. And its estimated annual cost is $2.2 billion. Option two consists of the deployment of critical capabilities in support of affected member states upon request with an estimated annual cost of $353 million US. The overall estimated cost is 2.6 billion USD. This shows the cost involved in security and reminds us of the need to invest in conflict prevention. In this regard, we have continued with our efforts to tackle the proliferation of small arms and light weapons. Working with the National Commissions on Small Arms, some trainings were conducted between January and March 2023. About 80 personnel from the security services who are focal persons of the exemption procedure in their respective ministries and agencies acquired requisite knowledge on arms transfer management as well as competencies and skills for enhanced management of the ECOWAS exemption procedure. Honorable Speaker, that concludes my presentation with regard to the Commission, and with your permission, I will go very quickly on the activities of three of our institutions, namely the Court of Justice, GIABA, and WAHU. Honorable Speaker, as indicated in terms of judicial performance, as of 24 March 2023, a total of 641 cases had been filed at the court since 2003, of which 347 judgments and 135 rulings have been delivered. The court the court has also issued 52 orders, while 174 cases are pending. To improve its operations, the court has invested in IT and used it to hold virtual court sessions, which enables the parties to participate remotely in court sessions with the concomitant efficiency and cost benefit. Records, Honorable Speaker, at the court show that there are a total of 106 judgments that have not been enforced by member states, and another 11 by ECOWAS institutions. Even though the court is engaged with member states to resolve the challenges militating against the enforcement of its decision, this is hopefully an area that the Parliament can help in facilitating the resolution of the challenges. Turning to the Intergovernmental Action Group against money laundering, GIABA, we can report that some progress has been made regarding enhancing the compliance of member states with anti-money laundering, counter-financing of terrorism, countering the financing of proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. GIABA held a review of the first enhanced follow-up reports of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which outlined the measures taken by Nigeria to strengthen the effectiveness of its system. As a member of the Financial Action Task Force, GIABA provides support to countries under the International Cooperation Review Group monitoring. In line with GIABA's mandate to conduct mutual evaluation of its member states to ascertain their level of compliance with the FATF recommendations and the effectiveness of its AML-CFT systems, GIABA conducted the on-site mutual evaluation of the Republic of Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea, and Liberia in December 2022, and March 2023 and March 2023, respectively. This draft mutual evaluation report will usually be presented to a technical committee and plenary session of mutual evaluation committees. Honorable Speaker, as indicated earlier, our regional health institution, WAHU, continue to confront the numerous health challenges facing our region, which is complicated by population explosion, uncontrolled migration, and climate change. There have been increases in both communicable and non-communicable diseases. So far this year, the ECOWAS region experienced 14 new events related to diseases with epidemic potential, including yellow fever, Rift Valley fever, rabies, monkeypox, poliomyelitis, measles, meningitis, Lassa fever, cholera, and dengue fever. One of the most striking trends is the gradual increase in measles, with 15,000 cases recorded in 2022 for 6 countries, against 1,500 confirmed cases in 2020 for 5 countries. Maternal and infant mortality remain high, as does the prevalence of malaria and other health problems, including non-communicable diseases. The maternal mortality ratio is 347 maternal deaths per 100,000 live births, while the assessment made in November 2022 of the malaria situation of the last 15 years shows that this disease is almost eliminated in Cape Verde, while the number of cases per 1,000 inhabitants varies from 18 to 375, depending on the country. Other health challenges relate to the lack of adequate number of health professionals, which is made worse by the flight outside the region in search of better living and working conditions of health service providers. Furthermore, due to the absence of health insurance, most of the community citizens are on direct payment for health care, with the attendant financial barriers to accessing health services. In this instance, WAHO took measures to mitigate these challenges. These measures include strengthening the preparedness and response capacity of managers of points of entry in ECOWAS countries, provision of equipment and materials to ECOWAS countries, training and deployment of emergency medical teams, joint external assessment of countries, strengthening of cross-border collaboration, strengthening the quality of reference laboratories, and award of capacity building fellowships. Excellencies, we have also been working on improved partnerships to be able to address the needs and challenges of our community. In this regard, the Commission has held high-level meetings with its partners, including a high-level political dialogue with the European Union in February 2023, which we co-chaired with the European Commission's High Representative Vice President in charge of coordinating the external relations of the European Union. This meeting discussed the new cooperation and financing instrument, including the NDICI, which offers financing opportunities with a budget of more than 11.6 billion for West Africa over the period 2021-2027. With regard to our cooperation with Spain, we embarked on a high-level mission and met His Majesty the King of Spain upon his invitation to open up new areas of cooperation. We've also held high-level meetings with governments of the United Kingdom, United States, United Nations, the African Union, the Organization of African, Caribbean, Pacific States, Finland, and Germany. And finally, Honorable Speaker, distinguished parliamentarians, just yesterday, May 9th, we held our first ever briefing session for the African ambassadors accredited to the Federal Republic of Nigeria. To conclude, Honorable Speaker, I am happy to report that this constitutes a synopsis of our update on the implementation of the Commission work program and the work program of other community institutions. As you will appreciate, the task of building a community covers many aspects of our lives and many sectors, including the economy, the society, security, environment, government, politics, and health. We all have a role to play, and I invite you to join hands with both regional and national institutions to make the dream of our founding fathers come true and to realize the vision of a peaceful and prosperous community for all. I thank you for your attention.